Day one was a spectacle. On one hand, we welcomed in 32 new talented players to the league, but on the other, we also had some surprises along the way. Today, I want to talk about some winners and losers of round one of the 2024 NFL Draft. Down the line, I might regret this, but let's get into it. Kicking off here with the winners, I have six winners, six losers, but of course, I'm going to add in some others along the way. Starting off with the winners, it has to be the Chicago Bears, and this one was simple. It was lined up for them to have a great night, but they capitalized and they had a great night ultimately. Starting with Caleb Williams at number one, we've known this was going to be the pick for really a year now. It just mattered on which team was going to have the privilege, to draft Caleb Williams, and it happened to be the Chicago Bears with that trade last year for Bryce Young. They get Caleb Williams at number one. And at number nine, there was a lot of rumors going around right before the draft. Are the Bears going to trade this pick? Are they going to draft a lineman, a receiver, or is it going to be an edge rusher? To me personally, I thought it should have been a Laiatu Latu or a Dallas Turner, just saying that their offense already has the star power. But they said that's not enough. Let's go out there and grab Rome Odunze as well. So now this offense is loaded with DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, who came on second half of the year, and then you add on Rome Odunze. It's scary to think that this Bears offense is going to be electric next season, and they might put up 30 points a game. But they also have two or three picks left in this draft, so I'm expecting all of those picks to be addressed on the defensive side of the ball. But the Chicago Bears have to be winners of round one, no doubt about it. I give them an A plus, by the way, for round one. Round two, we talk about a division rival for the Bears in the Minnesota Vikings. Coming into the draft, every single mock draft that you watched basically had the Vikings trading up somewhat, whether if it was for pick four, pick three, even, or pick number five. The Vikings were almost destined, according to the media, to trade up and to, I guess, get rid of this 23rd overall pick. However, they bit the bluff, I guess is a good way to put it, as they were, they had 11, they had 23, and instead of trading both of those picks for one player, they, waited it out and pick 10 came around and JJ McCarthy was still on the board. So they move up one spot and they get to keep pick 23, which came in handy later. So at pick number 10, they traded up with the Jets. They got their quarterback in J.J. McCarthy. A lot of people thought they had to trade up into the top 4 or 5 for him. They waited till 10. So they got their guy at 10. And then they used pick 23 and other draft capital to trade up to pick 17 to get maybe the best defensive player in this class in Dallas Turner. The Vikings, they lost Kirk Cousins this offseason, and they lost Daniel Hunter. They got their replacements for those guys in this draft class. Now, it might take time for those guys to get to that level, but from day one, you're going to have two valuable and I guess good replacements for the key pieces you lost this offseason. So NFC North, we'll talk about it later, but the NFC North, there's these teams that were at the bottom, and the Bears and the Vikings, they're getting much needed improvements here in this offseason. So both of these guys definitely get at least an A. The only reason I give the Vikings an A, well, I guess I probably should have given them an A plus for the simple fact that they got both of these guys instead of just getting one. So I'm going to change it on the fly here. They're going to get an A plus here in my winners. For number three, it's going to be quarterbacks' health. There were 6 offensive linemen drafted in the top 20 and 9 of them in the first round. So almost a third of the first round here in the NFL draft were offensive linemen. And of course, injuries are the worst part about sports in general, right? They're always the worst part about sports. You hate to see talented athletes that work their entire lives to get to a certain point and help their professional team get to a certain level. And then they go down with injury. And then, of course, everybody, the season just kind of crumbles beneath their feet, quite literally, with these injuries. But again, a lot of these quarterbacks got much needed help. Joe Burrow, of course, got Amarius Mims. Joe Alt, of course, goes to the Los Angeles Chargers. J.C. Latham to the Tennessee Titans. Olu Fashanu, of course, there to the New York Jets. Troy Fautanu, right? A lot of these guys were going to great spots. Talise Fuaga goes to the New Orleans Saints. A lot of great offensive linemen went in this draft, but it's also, I want to throw it out there, there's still talented offensive linemen out there for round number 2, most notably a guy like Jackson Powers Johnson and Zach Frazier. There's a couple other guys down the board that can still help these quarterbacks and I'm interested to see where they go at round number 2. But I can almost promise you guys, guys like Zach Frazier and Jackson Powers-Johnson, they're almost destined to be round 2 picks. But again, number 3, quarterbacks are pretty happy that they're getting some protection here in 2024. At number 4, offensive players, in general, right? These prospects, there's 23 offensive players drafted in this first round. And for on top of that, I'll say it this way. To start the draft, 14 straight offensive players started the draft. That is almost double the previous record. Offensive players, of course, I'll say this, it's an offensive game now, right? Offense wins championships. Defenses just keep you in the game, at least as far as the 2024 rules. And of course, the offensive players dominated this draft class because at the end of the day, they are more talented than they've ever been. But for the simple fact that 6 quarterbacks were taken in the top 12 is crazy in its own right. But the fact that 14 straight offensive players went, I've never seen anything like it, of course, obviously. But I think it might only get crazier as the years go on. And we might get to a point where we start getting up to the 20 range. Of course, it depends on how talented a defender or a defensive class might be. A lot of factors come into play, but offensive players as a whole win the first round of the draft for the simple fact that 23 of them were drafted in the first round, and of course, 14 straight of them to open up the night. At number 5, my guys so far. If you missed the video yesterday, right before the NFL draft, I released a 5-minute video, hey, claiming my guys going into this season. No matter where they ended up, these were the 5 guys, if I had to boil it down, that I was going to stick with no matter where they went, and I'm going to call my shot. These guys are going to be successful at the next level, starting with a guy like Laiatu Latu. I thought he was the best defender in the class, and the NFL saw it that way as well. He goes number 15 to break that offensive streak to the Indianapolis Colts. He's going to be their next Dwight Freeney kind of player, as he's going to go and be able to learn from guys like a DeForest Buckner on that defensive line. And there's a lot of great defensive minds there in Indianapolis. So I'm excited that Laiatu Latu, not only is he the most pro-ready defensive lineman and edge in this class, but he's also going to have a great cast around him on that Indianapolis defensive line. I think this is a guy that, saying that Indianapolis, to me, could potentially be a playoff team as well. Laiatu Latu might end up being the defensive rookie of the year if he, of course, produces, at least as a rookie here in the NFL. I'm not expecting him to put up 20 sacks in a season. If he did, of course, he's in the defensive player of the year rankings, let alone the defensive rookie. I'm not expecting him to have that crazy of a season. However, I'm excited to see what he can do there in Indianapolis. Another guy on my list was Rome Odunze. It's kind of a no-dub pick, but if you follow the channel, I've been raving about Rome Odunze for over a year now, and it's just for the simple fact that, yes, I know he was a top 10 pick, and he was slated to be that. However, Rome Odunze just going to the Bears in a great situation where he can learn from guys like DJ Moore and a veteran like Keenan Allen. Rome Odunze is just set up, and so is this Bears offense, to be dominant for years to come. As long as Caleb is that guy, Chicago is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and Rome Odunze is going to have a big part in that for the next 10 or so years. And then the last guy, Ricky Pearsall. I didn't think he was going to be a first-round pick. As a Gators fan, I loved him because he does everything so well. You watch him, and it's like, it's hard to imagine that he doesn't succeed at the next level because he does everything so well, whether if it's blocking, route running, just having sure hands, or just being sneakily agile. And no pun intended there with, of course, the player profile of Ricky Pearsall. I didn't expect him to go round 1, but he went to the San Francisco 49ers at pick 31. And now that raises some questions. Does that mean that San Francisco is going to move one of these receivers like Debo or Brandon Ayuk? Or are they just going to roll into next year with 4 talented wide receivers, of course, including Jawan Jennings, maybe the best tight end in the game in George Kittle. You have 2 talented receiving backs as well in Christian McCaffrey and Kyle Juszczyk. You still have the offensive line. You still have Brock Purdy, and you still have a great defense. This offense and defense is loaded. San Francisco definitely has an argument for the most talented roster in the league, top to bottom. But it's interesting. Does this mean that one of those talented star receivers are going to be moved? I don't think so. They might just roll into the year with Ricky Pearsall being their slot receiver. But of course, it only makes this offense that much more dangerous. 2 other guys on my guy list. Of course, I had to boil it down to 5. were Trey Benson and Cameron Kinchins. Cameron Kinchins, of course, is definitely the sleeper pick on my list. I think he can be a day two pick, maybe as early as pick 43, I believe, with the Tennessee Titans. They need a safety after Kevin Byard departed. We'll have to see if he goes as early as then. I believe he should be, right? I love the player in Cameron Kinchins, but he should be a day two, if not a round three pick. And same with Trey Benson. Trey Benson will be a round two pick, in my opinion. Again, if not, he's going to be a round three at the very latest. But of course, Trey Benson and Cameron Kinchins, two guys that no matter where they go, I think they're going to be able to succeed at the next level. And at number 6 is kind of just a feel-good pick. But it's really just the fact that the Panthers kept their promise. We know, well, David Canales, the new head coach, came out and said that they told 50 other players that if they were here by a certain pick on the board, they would draft them. I don't believe that's true. I believe that's a cover up because honestly, Xavier Legette, right, over the last couple weeks, whether if he was on this podcast or that show or whatever, he's just blatantly came out and said that the Panthers told him that they were going to draft him if he made it to a certain point. I don't think he was supposed to say that. I don't think he was supposed to come out and make that claim that he was going to be a Carolina Panther basically. But I think David Canales had a pretty good cover up saying the fact that they told multiple other prospects that as well. But again, I give it a B plus for the simple fact that Xavier Legette, some people have him as a top 10 receiver, some don't. No doubt he has the potential to be. I will say that there's a lot of pressure on him. He walks into being maybe the number one wide receiver from day one there in Carolina. So can he handle that? Of course, he's going to have a lot of eyes on him, a lot of pressure on him. I'm interested to see what other picks Carolina does in the second and third round, especially because they have a top 10 pick in the second round as well. Maybe they target a guy like Ladd McConkey. Maybe they target a guy like Troy Franklin. Just continue to overhaul this offense and to help Bryce Young be the quarterback he drafted him to be. Of course, and really, you gave up Caleb Williams for Bryce Young. So you need to protect Bryce Young as much as you can, give him as much help as you can. And Xavier Legette is definitely a great start as far as weapons going into 2024. But it's just a feel-good story that they kept their pick and they even traded up to get him in the first round. And that's a lifelong dream for pretty much any athlete to be a first-round pick. Xavier Legette not only had his promise kept by the Panthers, but he was also a first-round pick. So feel-good story there. So Xavier Legette and the Carolina Panthers are just winners in my books. For the losers here, let me explain here. Of course, Drake May, I think is maybe the most talented quarterback in the class. I think he might have the most potential in this class out of any quarterback on the board. And that might be a hot take. That might not be. But I think for the losers, I have the punchline as, may I wait? And that is for the simple fact that the Patriots, as of right now, have Demario Douglas or Juju Smith-Schuster as their number one option as far as a receiving threat. That doesn't really scream off the page as, hey, I want to throw to those guys, or I want to play for that team. Drake May, he's going into a situation with a rookie head coach with a lackluster supporting cast. My hope for Drake May and this New England Patriots front office is that they just let Jacoby Brissett start. They let him start for at least 8 to 10 weeks. Let Drake May catch up to the NFL speed and level, because no matter how talented he was at the collegiate level, it is a completely different game. It's a different speed here at the NFL. So I don't want this guy to be thrown into the fire. Who cares if you don't win Rookie of the Year? I don't want you to get thrown into the fire, especially in a situation where you have to be Superman on a daily basis there because you don't have a great supporting cast around you. Again, with your best option being Demario Douglas and Juju Smith-Schuster. As much as Demario Douglas had a good season last year, he's just not a number one option. He's really a slot receiver. So, may I wait is a great way to put it. I hope that Gerard Mayo, even if this team starts off well under 500 in those 10 weeks, I hope that they don't just throw him into the fire, week 4, week 5. Hopefully, if they don't get out to 0-4, 0-5, hopefully Gerard Mayo doesn't panic and say, hey, hey, here you go, Drake May, go make something happen. Go make magic out of nothing. I hope that's not the case for Drake May. So the punchline, may I wait? So the losing, let me clarify. The number one loser here would be if the Patriots said, okay, we have Brissett. Maybe he can be that coach, that mentor from the sideline, and we're just going to start Drake May from day one. That to me would be a losing situation. Hopefully the Patriots don't do that. Again, may I wait. At number two, it's going to be this Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix Jr. dilemma. Kirk Cousins, as most of you know, just signed a 4-year, $190 million contract with the Atlanta Falcons this previous offseason with $100 million guaranteed. So again, shout out to Kirk Cousins. That's generational money. But this Falcons team said that's not enough. They went out there with the number 8 pick, and instead of drafting a Dallas Turner or a Layatu Latu or a cornerback like most of us expected, what they did and was very surprising. They ended up just going out there and drafting Michael Penix Jr., a guy that's going to be 24 years old here in just a few weeks, to be the backup quarterback. That is interesting because Kirk Cousins, not only did they sign him to this big contract, and not only is he the leader of this team, but they didn't even let him know that was going to be a possibility. So interesting dilemma there. Kirk Cousins, you sign a new deal and you're looking for some help on the defense, but you don't get it. In fact, all you get is competition going into next season. I don't think Michael Penix is going to be, I don't think Kirk Cousins is in danger of getting his job replaced right here in the next even year or two. However, I think it is definitely going to create maybe some unwanted drama in that locker room. Not that I see those guys as drama. All I'm saying is the locker room may be split. We've seen that in previous years with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers. We've seen it in previous years with even with the Bears even. Some of the players in the locker room wanted Justin Fields over Caleb Williams, and that just wasn't the case. So it could create a divided locker room is the point I'm getting at. But for the Atlanta Falcons, I understand what they're doing. The blueprint is there with the Kansas City Chiefs, with Alex Smith and Patrick Mahomes, with the Packers and their revolving door of great quarterbacks. They want to get Michael Penix and and have him sit and learn from Kirk Cousins for probably 2 years, and then let him take over when he's 26 years old, entering the prime of his physical ability and his career, ideally, right? 26 years old. And with modern medicine and how the NFL protects quarterbacks nowadays, quarterbacks can play until they're 40 years old. So Michael Penix, let's say he starts his career at 26 years old. You then have 10 to 14 years with him, of course, if everything goes right. I think this is a great move. Ideally, again, the idea of it is a great idea for the Atlanta Falcons front office. But the loser here is Kirk Cousins because he had no idea this was going to go on. And of course, he might feel backstabbed by the move, especially because he didn't get any help. Again, instead, he got competition here in the 2024 draft. So the loser, let me clarify, is Kirk Cousins because he was blindsided. At number three and number four kind of work together, so I'll make these quick. But at number three, it is the AFC West defenses. Of course, you have guys like Joe Alt entering the division. Bo Nix, if he could be something special. I forget, again, it's early in the morning. I forget which exact lineman Brock Bowers was the draft pick for the Raiders. So not only are you getting those weapons, but mainly I made this number three because of the Kansas City Chiefs and what they were able to do with their first round here tonight, as they brought in Xavier Worthy. Not only in the offseason did they bring in a speedster and a field stretcher like Marquise Hollywood Brown, but now you get, statistically, the fastest man to ever play football in Xavier Worthy. So now you have Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy on the outside. If Rashee Rice is cleared of his suspensions, you have guys underneath like Travis Kelce, maybe the best to ever play his position, and you have Rashee Rice over the middle. So you have your field stretchers, you have your underneath guys, and then, of course, you have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid to lead the charge. The Chiefs are going to be scarier than ever, I feel like, even though both of those guys aren't Tyreek Hill, right, the speedsters. I think combined, they can definitely play to that level, of course, again, combined between Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy. But it's going to be a very interesting season here to see exactly how teams defend the Kansas City Chiefs, because you can't really press them because they have the speed, but you can't give them too much space because they have guys like Travis Kelce and Rashee Rice to be able to beat man coverage. I don't know how you're going to guard the Chiefs, in all honesty. And they still have some second-round picks to go address the secondary here in the second round. So interesting to see exactly where they go and how they go about it. But this offense is almost unstoppable. But again, other guys like Brock Bowers is going to be a huge piece for the Raiders. Joe Alt is going to be dominant for the Chargers. And of course, Bo Nix, if he starts from day one, maybe he could be the next Drew Brees for Sean Payton. At number four, it's going to be the NFC North defenses for the simple fact that the Vikings improved so much and the Bears improved dramatically here. Well, again, the Vikings got their quarterback, so they improved dramatically at that position. The Bears, of course, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze. Now I will say, to counteract that, a guy like a team like the Detroit Lions, they brought in Terrion Arnold, of course, so he will be on Rome Odunze. Interesting matchup there, of course, rematch from a couple years ago, but the NFC North defenses, of course, there was a tackle there, Jordan Morgan for the Packers, but you also get J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams, and Rome Odunze to enter the division. Again, a lot of young, talented pieces that could give defenses quite literally just a big headache. So NFC North defenses for the same reason as the AFC West defenses, just a lot of talent was brought in. So again, these defensive coordinators better be ready. At number 5, it is just certain talent that was left on the board. Guys like Cooper DeJean, Johnny Newton, Jackson Powers Johnson, Zach Frazier, Adonai Mitchell, Keon Coleman. There's a lot of names that are still left on this board. To me, I'm going to throw it out there. Tyler Nubin, of course, Ennis Racketstraw, they're out of Mizzou. There's a lot of names still left on this board, and I feel bad for them, and I don't want to call them losers. But it's for the simple fact that these guys worked their entire lives to get to this point. And sure, the ultimate goal is just to make an NFL roster and to be a great player. But at the end of the day, in the back of their minds, they've always wanted to be a first-round pick. And for the simple fact that whether it was injuries or just schematic fits, some of these guys now are just never going to be able to be a first-round pick anymore. So I do feel bad for them. But again, they're losers for the simple fact that certain talent just didn't go in the first round. There's still going to be talented players, and this second round is going to be loaded with talent, in my opinion, again, with a lot of the names that I just mentioned, but there's some other names on there that I did forget. But certain talent for the simple fact they didn't get that first round call. But again, that doesn't mean they're going to be bad players. A lot of these guys will be great second round additions here at the NFL level. At number 6, currently, it is the Buffalo Bills because they don't have a number 1 wide receiver. Unless you think Khalil Shakur or unless you think Curtis Samuel can be a Stephon Diggs replacement, then, they're not losers. But as of right now, I know they traded back twice to get out of the first round. They have the first pick tonight to start the second round, and I'm almost positive it's going to be Keon Coleman or Adonai Mitchell. However, as of right now, they don't have a receiver. So for round 1, they are a loser, saying that not only did they trade out of the first round twice, however, they also gave their conference rival in the Chiefs a number 1 wide receiver or a number 1 level wide receiver in Xavier Worthy, or at least a guy that's going to give them a lot of headaches there in the Kansas City and Buffalo matchups. So not only did you help a conference rival, but you also don't have a big need filled at this moment in time. So going into the second round, they have some picks. I think they're going to address their secondary and, of course, their wide receiver room. So I'm excited to see which route they go tonight. If I had to make a prediction, of course, it would be a guy like Adonai Mitchell. I think he's just a little bit better than everybody else on the board. But I want to go back to the winners here very quickly because I have some other guys that I just want to throw out there. Michael Penix. I think even though you're a veteran quarterback and you've seen a lot of defenses there at the collegiate level, going into a situation with those talented young weapons around you, and you get to learn from a very solid veteran in Kirk Cousins, I think that classify you as a winner for day one. And of course, being a top 10 pick is going to give you a better paycheck than what you were originally projected to get. So, of course, I'm sure his pockets are happy and he's excited for his career because he's just going to be put in a great situation to succeed from day one, whenever day one happens to be. Another thing, Daniel Jones is a winner for the simple fact that he still has his job. The Chiefs, of course, you continue to add speed and getting Xavier Worthy makes your offense that much more dangerous. So the Chiefs offense is a winner as well. The top 4 teams, I wanted to touch on them as they didn't panic, right? A lot of trade rumors go around right before the draft. And of course, if you're in that position, you do have a chance to get a very talented player, but there's also a lot of pressure that comes in the war room of having a top pick like that. And these teams, not only did they go out there and not panic, but they made seemingly the right decisions. Of course, Caleb Williams goes to the Bears. Marvin Harrison goes at number 4 to the Arizona Cardinals. And the Commanders, they had the selection of who they thought was going to be their quarterback. Is it going to be Drake May or is it going to be Jaden Daniels? They stuck with Jaden Daniels. They got their schematic fit in Jaden Daniels. So, of course, all four teams at the top of the board got their guys seemingly, and they all seem pretty happy. They didn't trade out of panic. And of course, they're winners because of that, because over the years, we've seen teams trade out of panic and ultimately lose out on talent. So shout out to those guys for staying pat. The only other loser that I want to throw out there, well, actually, I have it on here for the simple fact that Kirk Cousins did end up being a loser here, and I touched on that. But that is episode 167 in the books. Thanks to you guys, I have some interesting opportunities coming up here for the channel and my career. So I want to thank you guys for that. I mean, currently, as of this morning, 16.7 thousand subscribers and counting. So we're on the road to 17,000. If you enjoyed, drop a like, subscribe to the channel. Help us continue to get to these next big milestones, because eventually, hopefully, this could be a full-time career for me. But again, I couldn't do any of this without you guys. So thank you for all the support. The only thing I want to throw out there is that starting next week, I believe, no, excuse me, starting on May 6th, Monday, May 6th, fantasy football content is returning to the channel. So if you're interested in fantasy football and you want to get a leg up on your competition early, come back to the channel, man. You know, every single week I will be releasing 2 podcasts about fantasy football videos, and we'll be going through some different rankings. Eventually, we'll do some mock drafts here on the channel. A lot of great content that we did exactly last year. We're going to do it again, and we're going to continue to win some money in fantasy football. But until next week, stay happy, stay healthy, get out of here.